We're very pleased to have Dr. Ira Bhaskar with us today. She has critical interests in historical poetics, cinematic forms, including melodrama, cinema, and modern subjectivities. Dr. Ira Bhaskar is Associate Professor of Cinema Studies at the School of Arts and Aesthetics at JNU. She would be focusing on looking at communal stereotypes and specifically the role of cinema. The theme, I think, is something that is of great interest specifically to us as educators and as young people who are educating themselves to become school teachers, mainly because not only is this an important social issue and concern in current times, but it has always been an area important for educators to look at in terms of questioning what we really transact as curriculum in our classrooms. This is an area which would be very beneficial to many of us to take back into our classrooms as and when we discuss contemporary issues in our classrooms, or when we are looking at children in school situations or trying out different pedagogic techniques. I welcome Dr. Ira Bhaskar.
Thank you very much, Poonam. It's a great pleasure to be here. For years, lived a double life, taught English, worked on cinema, but constantly while I was teaching in Gargi and both our English honors students and the BA students and the BLF students, cinema was something that was constantly came into the classroom because it's something that we need to pay attention to. It's all around us. It's in the cinema halls. It's on television. It's a form of it's a language and a form of narration and narrative and ideology that your students, our children, are constantly receiving, and so it would be very, very interesting for all of us as teachers to actually engage with it. I want to tell you a little story. It's December 1992, the demolition of Babri Masjid. My son and daughter were in school, and my son was 7 years old. The children had been brought up, at that point in time, they did not grow up with a sense of identity, of their identity as Hindu and somebody else's identity as Muslim, because we didn't believe in it. You were just you. His name was Ishan, he was called Abu at home, he was just Abu, and his sister was Swaga, and that was it. I didn't feel the need to tell them that you're Hindu, you belong to this caste and all, because in many ways we were living a form of life that went against that kind of identity formation. Much to my horror, of course, I realized that one cannot take that position with children. 6th December, 7th December, it was fine. 4 or 5 days later, he comes home very angry. He was the captain of their class football team. And his right-hand person was a young boy called Salman. Salman hadn't been coming to school from 6th December onwards. He came 6 days later. The day he came to school, everybody boycotted Salman. Nobody spoke to him, and this is the premier, one of the premier schools of Delhi. Nobody spoke to Salman, and except Abu, because he was Abu's great friend, and then comes break time. Normally they used to share their lunch, right? So nobody shared, so Abu and Salman were sitting together, nobody came to share their lunch. After the lunch, the boys all said, "We are not playing with you until you keep Salman throw him out of the team." So Abu said, "Kyun? Why?" So he said, "नहीं, हम उसके साथ नहीं खेलेंगे, वो ये है, गंदा है, ये है, वो है, etc., etc." This went on. So there was a fight. Abu didn't realize, because he hadn't connected that the demolition of the Babri Masjid had anything to do with this. So he had a fight with them, and he said, "Okay, in that case, if Salman is out of the team, so am I, and that's the end of it. Koi match nahi hoga." So there was no match that day. There was no football match. And he came home and he was very angry, because now these two were the outcasts in the group. And I asked him, who are the people, why are they saying it, and who are they? And so we realized that, there are, people come from different kinds of backgrounds, and clearly they were bringing into the classroom attitudes from home. he asked me, why are they behaving like this? And I explained to him that this is what has happened. And he had a very logical question. He said, जब हिंदुओं ने बबरी मस्जिद को तोड़ा, तो मुसलमान की क्या गलती है? And then he had to answer, but who is a Hindu and who is a Muslim? I mean, he had to be told, and I realized that it was time now to sit both the children down and to have a little conversation with them. And the teachers must know what's going on, and that the school needs to now intervene and actually address this issue, because they cannot allow these prejudices, communal prejudices and stereotypes of the other to circulate in this fashion in the school. After all, this is just a 7-year-old child. So imagine how deep-rooted these prejudices are if 7-year-old children can be so virulent. And this, by the way, the prejudice didn't end. It continued for a while. For a week, 10 days, 2 weeks after that, there was no football match. Nobody would share the food with Salman. And it took quite a lot of time and intervention by us and by the school before this could be actually addressed. But I thought I'd begin with this because I think some of you who are training to be school teachers and will be teaching classes of that, with children of that age, must be aware that in the, whatever you do in the classroom, there's a lot of teaching to be done outside the syllabus, as we all know, isn't it? And they're constantly talking about life issues and issues about the way in which we relate to our world and to the issues of our world that are very important. And I think one very good facility and a very good resource is actually cinema, because most people watch cinema. I'd like to now begin by just drawing your attention to how fractious the question of identity has been in India. It's actually been a really difficult, contested and fractious issue. Right through the 80s, with the ascendancy of the Hindu right wing and the coming to power of Hindu right wing parties at the center and in the states, we realize how discourse, public discourse, is closely tied into political developments and how they actually circulate in the public sphere and in the public realm through various forms. And therefore, I want to draw your attention to the way in which these images circulate now, the images of ourselves and others I'd like to put in quotation marks. And of course, the most difficult issue for us has been the inter-community relations between Hindus and Muslims post-independence. Pre-independence as well, but definitely it's not an issue that has gone away with the partition, and there are various reasons for it, and we could talk about that. Coming to now cinema, and I'm using all my examples from Bombay cinema and Hindi, Urdu cinema, and I'm going to take an attitude and an approach that's a sort of historical approach. So I'm going to look at different moments in this history, and I'm going to try to articulate for you and point out what were the critical moments and films that were actually very, very crucial. I don't know how many of you have heard of Fearless Nadia, a big star of the 1930s who worked in the Wadia films of Wadia movie tone, and she was in films like Hunter Wali. She would be dressed in riding trousers with boots, and she had a whip, and she had this horse, and she would climb, and then she would sort of swing her whip, and she would be really the source who would. Now this is an extremely empowering image for women in the pre-independence cinema. And in a film called Diamond Queen in 1940, Nadia comes and gives a huge lecture about how India is not going to be free until the women are free, and therefore women must be educated and the women must protect themselves. And there's this fantastic moment in Diamond Queen when Nadia gives her a scolding and she says, "I'll protect you now, but why are you so dependent, and you must become like me," and so on. So pre-independence, the films are taking up a number of issues, including issues that are related to questions of identity, but not in a direct way, not in a contested way.